Welcome to Honest Obituaries, where we read obituaries and have conversations about life. I'm Jay Howard in Springfield, Missouri. Honest Obituaries is a conversation podcast, and it's actually not supposed to be morbid. I love talking to people about whatever they're interested in. But because our day-to-day lives are so fast-paced and our culture is so celebrity-oriented, genuine conversation can be hard to find. So on this podcast, the obituaries will be conversation starters to get us through the small talk and move us into conversations about other topics. There's nothing at all wrong with small talk, but there's also nothing wrong with the kinds of conversations people have around a campfire at 1 a.m. as the firewood burns down into coals. Your phone is dead. You're sitting there on a log thinking about how someday you'll be dead too. And you're just looking up at the stars and chewing on the big questions with friends. I love that. I don't know if we're going to have conversations like that on this podcast, as I don't have a campfire. Our goal is more modest, to simply have a series of life-affirming conversations about how to live in light of our own eventual certain death. In a 2013 issue of the New York Review of Books, author Zadie Smith wrote a piece called Man vs. Corpse, where she said, "If I truly believed that being a corpse was not only one possible future, but my only guaranteed future, I'd do all kinds of things differently. I'd get rid of my iPhone for starters, lead a different sort of life." That quote resonates with me a lot. And the point I want to make is, thinking about death has the opposite effect people assume it has. Thinking about death oftentimes makes us more enthusiastic about affirming life, not less. Everybody from Socrates to Tim McGraw knows this. Tim McGraw, of course, went 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. And Socrates has his famous slogan, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Nothing prompts us to examine our life like a quick scan through the obituary pages. I am captivated by the eclectic things people do. For example, we often have our own little mini biographies on our social media pages, which construct an identity for us out of 2 or 3 things we want people to know. Yoga instructor, dog mom, cheeseburger lover, stuff like that. We can see this happening in people's resumes as well sometimes, in the hobbies and interests section, where the person is a business analyst, but they also love beekeeping and sleight of hand magic. We can see this on the Wikipedia pages of famous people in the personal life section. For example, Doc Holliday is described as an American gambler, gunfighter, and dentist. I can't think of a less likely combination. People have all kinds of unlikely hobbies. George Washington was a mule breeder. Daniel Day-Lewis is a shoe cobbler. Angelina Jolie collects daggers. All of this is true. Look it up. But the final record of a person's life is their obituary, where a person's whole life is compressed into a few short paragraphs. And this is the stuff that really gets me, especially the obituaries of non-famous people. Let me read you one. Here's one from the local paper about Francine Sylvester. Francine, a longtime resident of the Springfield area, passed away peacefully at Mercy Medical Center. Fran was raised in a Bronx brownstone in New York City. Upon graduating from high school, she trained at a textile school for testing fibers and as a secretary. She met Henry Sylvester at a roller skating rink. Henry was studying at Columbia University on the GI Bill. They married and celebrated 66 anniversaries before Harry passed away in 2012. Fran and Harry raised 4 girls and 3 boys. Fran loved roses. At one point, she cared for 60 roses in her garden. She loved playing tennis, taught swimming for the Red Cross and the YMCA, and taught exercise classes for 26 years. When not pursuing her physical activities, she knitted sweaters, gloves, and hats for herself and others. When she passed, she had 2 large dressers filled with her warm, knitted, handmade sweaters. Fran was preceded by her husband, Henry, and her brother, Sam. She is survived by her children, and it lists them, and her grandchildren, and her 4 great-great-grandchildren, who are all listed in the obituary. That entire piece is less than 200 words, and I'm drawn specifically to the piece in the sentence in the middle, that 3-word sentence, Fran loved roses. At one point, she cared for 60 roses in her garden, and I'm assuming that's 60 individual rows of bushes, which is amazing. The thing that we know about her is that she loved roses. And, reading obituaries makes us ask ourselves, when our whole life gets compressed down into 200 words, what's the one thing that the random strangers reading this will know about us? In this case, she loved roses. What is the thing that you and I love? What's worth focusing on to such an extent that it will get mentioned in your obituary? So on this podcast, we're going to be reading obituaries, and I'm going to have guests, and I'm going to ask them some questions inspired by the obituary about their own life and see where the conversation goes. We'll also be drinking because the good book says, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. I'm pretty sure it says that in there somewhere. Anyway, it's good advice. So please join us for the upcoming conversations where we get to ruminate not on death, but on life.